StofSkop 2023, in my opinion, was an absolute massive success. What StofSkop is, it's a really fun day for oval track racing, flat track racing. It is all dirt, so it's on a dirt oval, but really well prepared. And the idea is just that it basically gets everybody on bikes that shouldn't be on an oval track onto the oval track. It's been held probably 4 or 5 years in a row, but unfortunately there was a hiatus due to COVID. And this is the first year back, and man, what an event. They split it up into a couple of different classes. There were sort of your typical plastic pig motocross bikes. There was your street bikes, which were Harley Davidsons and crotch rockets and that sort of stuff, all kinds of different street bikes and that sort of thing. And then there was a category called Moped Madness, which was mopeds of any kind. So any kind of scooters, Vespas included, all got shoved into a class together. And then hilariously they did a delivery bike section. And that was sort of the main feature of the day, because they got a whole bunch of like top-end enduro riders from around South Africa to come and ride these delivery bikes. As far as the scooter race is concerned, we had a bunch of different Vespas involved from our side, because of our customers and friends and that sort of stuff all came through. And there were a few other bikes as well. I was impressed to see a bunch of different guys taking initiative and bringing their big boys and bringing their BWSs and all that sort of stuff. And there was a nice grid. It was actually quite a lot of fun. The classes were all pretty full, so it wasn't anybody racing on their own. Everybody had a couple of bikes to mingle with and to get around the track with and whatever. And I think everybody was sort of on a level playing field, because nobody knew what to expect out of the track. The track surface was interesting. So there were a few different tires across the bikes that we ran. A few of them had knobblies, some of them were running snow tires. So there were a couple of different options, and the different tires showed their strengths and weaknesses accordingly. The knobblies were phenomenal off the line. They had really good traction when you were under power. They really dug into the surface and did phenomenal. Under braking, they were awful. They were locking up all the time. The back end of the bikes were sideways the whole way. You couldn't touch the front brake. And you had to really nurse it through the corner. Once you were sort of 3/4 through the corner, you could get on the throttle, it would dig in and it would go without a problem. But the snow tires were quite the opposite. The snow tires were fantastic under braking. You could brake really late, carry good speed through the corner. But then once you were out onto the straight section and the mud section started coming through, the snow tires really struggled. They were battling to get rid of the mud and became really slippery under throttle. So it was interesting to see the differences between the tires and that sort of thing. What happens normally with oval tracks is, as you're running through the day, they get really dry and the surface degrades when it's dry. So you need to keep it at a certain moisture level. If it's too dry, it degrades and you start creating ruts and that sort of stuff, and it starts scrubbing and makes a lot of dust. If it's too wet, you have the same problem where it degrades and you get ruts and you get holes and that sort of stuff. So you need to keep it just in between. So they would bring out a water truck and water the track. If your heat had happened on a dry lap and you had run around in the dry and you'd set your bike up nicely and everything, the next time you came in, the water tank might have just come through, in which case it was a complete different track, because now it was wet. There were wet spots, there were mud, there was the line that you were following previously now possibly didn't exist or wasn't a good choice. So it was really fun. Every time you got on the bike, every time you got onto the track, it was a new track. You had to formulate new plans, you had to pick new lines, you had to see what was fast and what wasn't, and what your bike was enjoying and what your bike wasn't. And then just because your bike was enjoying it doesn't mean that the bike next to you would find that same line fast. There was an automatic bike that was racing with us that was riding behind me quite a lot, or we were pretty close. And it was really interesting to see what he was doing, because he was running on street tires, completely sort of slick street tires. And because he was running a CVT bike, halfway through the corner he was on the throttle, the bike was sideways, and he could carry speed out the corner really well. But coming into the corner, he couldn't gear down. He couldn't, so there was a lot less control. So he was on the brakes, the bike was sideways all over the place. I could catch him into the corner. Midway through the corner, we were about the same. On the exits of the corner, he could start gapping me, and then the second we got on the straight, the 177 would start catching up to him. And then I would catch him through the brakes, and it was like this sort of tug of war the whole way through. It was a lot of fun. We really had a good time. So the race wasn't about winning. We raced, I think, 5 heats. The first heat, the guy on the auto bike pipped me. I had a couple of issues with the bike, but regardless, he won. I came second. And then the remainder of the heats, I came first. A little bit about the bike that I was riding. It's about a 2010, 2008 LML. It's got a lot of heritage. It's a really special bike. When it came up for sale, I jumped at the opportunity because it is the bike that Travis Pastrana rode when he was in South Africa. I dressed up as Travis Pastrana, and the bike, because it was the bike that he rode, we put the decals on and everything as he had it when he was riding the bike. It's got a 177 kit, it's got knobblies, it's got a bit of suspension done to it and that sort of thing. But nothing too wild. It's not a monstrously fast bike. Jace was on a early 80s P150X that had a 5-port 150 barrel on it with a Pellini exhaust and a couple of other things as well. His bike performed pretty well. Lance was on a early PX200, which, yeah, it's basically got a Pellini exhaust on it, it's got the knobblies, it's got the suspension and everything like the motor is stock. And then Bruno came in and rode on Brad's bike for one heat. And Brad's bike at that stage basically just had the knobblies, the sticker kit, and was a stock bike. Liesel's bike performed fantastically, so we're really happy with how that one ran as well. My bike hilariously blew up its clutch on the last lap of the last race. I knew I was taking a chance because we were running the stock clutch still. I hadn't had a chance to change out to something stronger. And I knew the starts were heavy on the bike, so I was trying to sort of let the clutch out softly and then only get on the throttle off the line. And on the last lap, I came around, tried to pull the clutch in, and there was no clutch. So it had obviously popped the circlip out in the clutch, and I had no clutch. I basically managed to get around, tried to drop a gear, it wasn't really working out. I put it into first and nursed it back around the cool down lap and back into pits. Yeah, so my clutch went. I've got to change that out.
Can you siphon fuel?
Yep.
Siphon exchange.
That's hospital trying to get it.
So when we got there in the morning, we got all our fuel out and everything, and we started fueling up the bikes. And we had premixed a whole bunch of fuel, so that it was all at the right ratio and everything, and we threw it all into all of the bikes and everything. And I came around the corner and had a look, and Lance had thrown premix into my bike, and my bike is still auto loop. Everybody was a big hoo-ha and all the rest of it. Lance is trying to, get me out of the race and that sort of stuff. So we chained out the fuel, made a plan, put the proper fuel in and all that sort of stuff, got my bike sorted out as well. But otherwise, they all performed fantastically. Everybody had a really good time. The bikes handled really well. There were a couple of close almosts and that sort of stuff, but everybody came out unscathed. We had so much fun doing this, and it's once in a year that they do StofSkop. So we decided that's not nearly enough. The oval tracks host races almost monthly. So we're going to get in touch with the guys and try and set up a bit of a class. And even if it's only 4 or 5 races a year or something like that, something the guys can look forward to, that can prep some of the bikes that maybe don't have papers or don't have a purpose. If you've got a Vespa lying at home and you're not really sure what to do with it and whatever the case is, bring it around, man. It's so much fun. It doesn't necessarily have to have tires, doesn't have to have shocks, doesn't have to have a kit. We're going to run a stock class, we're going to run an open class, and that oval is quite an equalizer because it's very short on the straights. It's a lot more about technique and about riding sort of capability than it is about your bike. So yeah, bring your bike around and let's have some fun. We set up a bit of a championship. MoversSpeedShop is going to sort of do a sideline championship with it. We'll keep track of how everything is going, and we'll do a prize at the end of the year and see how it goes. But that's sort of the plan, I think. We will be running a leaderboard. We'll post it up on our social medias and all that sort of stuff, and we'll have it here at the shop in hard copy so that everybody can see exactly how things are changing up. And yeah, we'll have a calendar for the whole year, and everybody can know when to prep and have dates aside and everything. So that will be announced shortly. But we want to just sort of get the video out to everybody so that you can see how much fun we had and what a draw this is.